Welcome back, all my 40K fanatics out there. I'm DJ here with Tim's Nation, and we just got balanced data slates. So we got them released early because they got released early. If you don't understand what I mean, check some forums online. I don't know the whole explanation behind this. All I know is that I guess they released to the app on accident, so everyone got to see them. So then Games Workshop just said, well, the cat's out of the bag, so here they are. Now, these are not going to be going into the app until next week, but if you're like me, it doesn't matter. We're already going to be compensating for it and playing with these new rule sets. And there are some interesting ones. There is definitely some interesting ones in this. So right now for this video, I'm only going to talk about the armies that I primarily play. And so for that, it's going to be the Grey Knights, the World Eaters, the Necrons, the Tyranids, as well as the Adeptus Mechanicus, which there's some juicy sauce with the AdMech now that I'm very interested to see how this rolls out. But all in all, those are the armies I want to kind of cover. I took my time. I got my nice little notes here, so we can go through all this and talk about all the difference. Make sure I'm in the right order too, because I probably wouldn't do that. I'd probably put them in the wrong order. But yeah, let's get into it. Let's dive into these data sheets and what we got here. So first and foremost, let's start off with the number one biggest newsworthy change of everything with competitive 40K. Challenger cards are gone. Challenger cards will no longer be part of competitive 40K with the balanced data slates, as they are going to be just removed. They fall in the same columns of twist as I think that's the asymmetrical thing for that. But twists and challenger cards will not be used in competitive play. So we are back to standard 40K. Makes it easier to score and a little less on the feels bad. Now, some of the secondaries probably could use some point tweakings on it. Some of the more difficult ones probably could use a better incentive to be worth more to score. But I feel like there's only a couple of those that would fall into that column, especially with so many secondaries scoring at the end of the turn now. So let's see how this goes out. I mean, for the challenger cards, left a very weird dynamic for the game overall. I utilized them because they were there. I'm not disappointed to see them go, to be honest with you. I did have some wins because of them, part of the game at the time. But now we'll play without them, and I think it's going to lead to a more clean game of 40K. One thing that Lane often addresses and stresses a lot, and I do carry this sentiment, is that you're doing everything right, playing the game right, and you have your opponent completely on the ropes and you're controlling the game. But because you gave them a bonus 12 points on secondary, on challenger cards, because you've been winning and they go second, suddenly you lose the game. There's already enough power in going second. We don't need to make it more powerful with something like the challenger cards. So they're gone. They're done. So moving on, out of the challenger cards, let's go over into the army. So first of all, we'll talk about the Necrons. So the Necrons, as far as the points are concerned, the Silent King went down 20 points, so he's now 400. Ooh, that's getting scary cheap on him. He's starting to get just decreasing more and more. 400 points is still an expensive unit, but given the fact that he is a centerpiece for armies such as Star Shatter and Hypercrypt, he's still a very powerful choice. He's a gunboat. He has a lot of shooting damage he can put out there, and in Star Shatter, he gets very difficult to destroy. So all in all, Silent King is just getting more powerful as we go. And he did get a change to his rules as well. We'll cover in a second. The other thing that went down is the Triarch Praetorians went down to 90 points. And to me, that's perfect. That's right where I want them to be. That's awesome. Triarch Praetorians are our jump infantry type unit. They always reroll charges. They deep strike. They have a 10-inch move, not a 10-inch move. And then depending on how you kit them out, they can either bring some devastating wound pistols and some 1 damage hits, or what I prefer, I like the Rod of the Covenant. I like the 2 damage. I like the AP. So I like to go with the Rod of the Covenant on mine particularly. And that's kind of where it's at. But the big thing is that this is a 90-point deep striking unit that very well could take the place of Ophidian Destroyers in a lot of detachments. Ophidian Destroyers they're able to hold your backfield, zone out, pick up, and end up somewhere else scoring points. But with the Ophidians, usually they end up in a very precarious position, and they usually just get wiped off the field and destroyed. Now, what's to say that the Triarch Praetorians won't as well? Well, with having the reroll charges, that's a big benefit on their fact to be able to charge into a unit that's 9 inches away and potentially be behind a wall. I think that gives them a lot more of a boost. Also, I'm going to have to mess with it a little bit. It might be easier to put the Praetorians down than it is to do the Ophidians in some scenarios. So, the Ophidians can pick back up. Yes. Typically, they're never going to be able to. When they hit, they usually just hit and get destroyed. They score their points and die. If they're in a defensive position, the Triarch Praetorians could be in the same defensive position. And the Praetorians have a little bit better damage output in some aspects than the Ophidians do. Ophidians have a good amount of attacks that they're bringing. A lot of them, I believe, I have to look back over, I believe they're only like 1 damage. They do have the devastating capability to come in there. But 3 damage weapons, which we see a lot of, pick them up relatively quickly, where the Triarch Praetorians have the 3 damage weapon, they're 2 wounds apiece in that aspect. So I don't know. It's going to take some messing around with and seeing how they go. In some of my lists, I feel like the Triarch Praetorians might be taking, and the fact that they do have a shooting profile too is a big benefit too. But I feel like the Triarch Praetorians could take the place of Ophidian Destroyers in some lists. Now, as far as the Silent King is concerned, his Triarch abilities, you get to pick for him. He's our big super unit, Supreme Commander. That's what I was looking for. And you get to pick one of 3 abilities at the start of the battle round or command phase. Correct me on whichever one it is. I can't remember offhand. But you get an ability, I think it's start of the command phase, that will go through usually aura effect, one of which is reroll 1s to hit and wound. Another one gives you the reroll charges and +1 strength in combat. And the last one was ignore all modifiers. And apparently, we dropped down 20 points, but that's now gone. Instead, we have Relentless March. So we're going to get +2 to our move characteristics. So with that one, if you're in that Triarch ability, you get +2 to your move. So initially, at first hand, it's like, wow, that's kind of not that good. But with the scenarios of, like I mentioned before, going second being super strong, in scenarios we go first. That's an ability you can use to help zone out the board. Now, something that we didn't have before. And when you start looking at things like going into going into Star Shatter, where you have auto advance 6 on a vehicle, you have assault weapons on the vehicles that you advance with, you have things like that at your disposal that you're able to use. Having +2 to that move characteristic means that those things can get further, start the game further, start doing things further. And even in the other lists, things like Scorpack Destroyers being able to make an 11-inch move off your line to get to an objective marker to be in a safer position where they start. Like, there is some play behind it as far as turn 1 is concerned. So now it's kind of one of those abilities I feel like we'll use it turn 1, and then it's just going to be back over to reroll 1s to hit and wound, unless you're getting into a fighting situation. Once in a while, I've switched over into reroll charges and +1 strength, because that's pretty good when the situation calls for it. But reroll 1s to hit and wound is still going to be the best ability on them, hands down. And but this move, it can help. It can help to zone out that board early. I mean, things like Tomb Blades getting +2 move and then advance and then assault because of the detachment, or if you have the assault weapons on them, shooting and then moving additional 6. Those guys can clear the board. It can score you behind enemy lines on turn 1 in some aspects. So Silent King, 400 points now. It's going to be scary. It's going to be scary to see how he does with Star Shatter. There's a couple other things I would have liked to see more in the shifting column, but to get more out of them. But You know what? The Praetorians, we haven't seen them. I really would have liked to see the Lich Guard with spears matter and do something with the Lich Guard, because I feel like the Lich Guard they were supposed to be our super durable unit, but now, even if you went back to the realm of being able to put a Technomancer on them, I don't think that they're even just durable enough as what we've seen with some of the destructive capabilities that are in 40K now. You know, what they were at the beginning of the edition to now, the capability to destroy things is just so high, and the damage output is so high. So I don't think that they are, even in their old iteration, would be really what they used to be. So it would be nice to see them get kind of a durability buff, so we could see Lich Guard really do their thing. But you know, we still got time. It could be interesting what the future is going to hold. Moving on, Tyranids and GK. No real changes here. No changes, at least in the balance data slates. Nothing was really there. The only thing we got for point-wise is the Raider and the Redeemer, which is a Marine thing across the board. The Land Raider Redeemer and the Land Raider standard stock, they got a point drop. And then for the Tyranids, Gene Stealers, Mawloc, Neurolictor, Turbigon, all got their points dropped. Now, Gene Stealer only got a point drop for the 10-man. So the 5-man still its original cost. But the Gene Stealers did drop in points for taking a 10-man. Okay, that's cool. Gene Stealers are squishy. In a lot of ways, I feel like they're almost just like Broodlord caddies. You drag them along with the Broodlord, they get shut down. The Broodlord does all the work anyways. But, you know, having them a little bit cheaper, that's nice. Mawlocs, I love them. So having those a bit cheaper so I can swing some other stuff and try. You know, I said a bunch of times, Invasion Fleet's my way. That's the way I'm going to go. That's what I want to play. Well, with some of these point drops, now I look at it and go, maybe I'll look into that Vanguard and Onslaught a little bit more. Neurolictor and Turbigon, honestly, they're just not interesting enough for me to want to run. The Neurolictor, I see a bunch of people run him. I see some people like him for what he can do. He just doesn't appeal to me that much. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I just really don't like anything that he does, and I just rather run a regular Lictor. And like I said last time with the Vanguard Onslaught, I probably just switch over to a standard Lictor at that point, just because what they do for their costs, I'd rather just have them. So yeah, that's it for the Tyranids and the Grey Knights. No real change, no big changes there. Grey Knights just got a book, so I wasn't surprised. Tyranids kind of got hit previous data slates, like 2 data slates ago, and really got to work up. And I think they're in a good place. I think they have all the tools to be a competitive army. It's just putting them together, and that's, you know, I'll mess with them here in the near future, but I really think they have all the tools necessary to really adapt with whatever the meta is. So I think they're actually in a good position. World Eaters. World Eaters got some love and some hate, but honestly, it's all the correct moves for this army. So first of all, the things that went up in points. That's a big one. The Forge Fiend went up 20 points. He's now 170. Completely understand why. Bringing one of those on from a board edge and you go, okay, I'm within 18 of you. I get full rerolls to hit and rapid fire for additional shots. I got strength 10, AB3, flat 3 damage. I'm going to vaporize that squad right there. Don't care what it is. I'm just going to hit it really hard. Maybe I won't vaporize it, but I'm going to hit it really hard. The Forge Fiend's nasty, and it does not require any other support to function. It's just the data sheet itself just works. And for that reason, yeah, even still 170 points is still so cheap, and I'll still run 3 of them. They're amazing. They're awesome. Maybe it might get me down to drop down to 2. You know, I've been running, a lot of times lately, I've been running just 1 just to do that job, just to come on from strategic, but I could consider just running 2 because I really like them a lot still. The Spawn went up 10 points. Not surprising here. The advance and charge is really big. The Spawn are good, really, really good. And out of Demonkin, it's another target to hit, to pop, and for it to get hit, pop, and bring bloodletters out of. They're fast, 2-man units. Yeah, I can see why. I can see why they went up 10 points. And 90 points for 2. Okay. 45 points apiece, roughly. Yeah, that's probably about where they are. Now we get to the things that went down in points. So as I mentioned before, Land Raiders went down. So the Land Raider the standard Land Raider went down to 220. The Terminators dropped 10 and 20 points respectively. So 175 for 5, 230 for 10. I wasn't overly impressed with the Terminators right now. Some of the stuff they do is pretty cool, but then overall they're a little lackluster compared to other things. When I ran the Gore Track Onslaught, someone had made a comment about how I could have done the similar strategy of bringing Terminators out of a Land Raider, except I did 8-bound. And when I looked over what they suggested in the numbers, yeah, they were very, very right. Like the 8-bound just overshadow the Terminators in every aspect of it from that angle. So, and I still think that's kind of the thing. I still think the 8-bound do overshadow, especially as we get into more of this. I think the 8-bound just really overshadow them, and it's just so good, just very, very, very strong. Okay, so first of the big ones, sorry. Angron is down to 360. He dropped 25 more points. Angron, while his data sheet might be not so good in the fact of like his abilities and stuff like that, 360 points for that monster of a stat line. Not the data sheet, not the abilities, not his pick one of these three things here and that stuff. His stat line is brutal for 360 points. So I think Angron is definitely back on the menu now. I think that we will be seeing him more commonly, and now it's not a why did you pick this and take someone aside and go, why are you running Angron? It's okay. I completely understand why you're running Angron. Already when he had a points drop, when we had Evan out here on the channel and he ran World Eaters, he already liked the point drop with Angron and started running him. Now he's even cheaper. So that's we'll see more of him. And then the 8-bound themselves. So the standard 8-bound went down 15 and 30 points to 135 and 270 a piece 135 for 3, 270 for 6, with the exalted 8-bound dropping 20 and 40 points, going down to 140 and 280 for the 6. So 135 points for 3 8-bound, or 270 for 6. That's a big deal. That really is a big deal, especially when you look at things like the Forge Fiends and stuff going up, and just in general, the Exalted dropping 20 whole points for 3, because now the Exalted 8-bound matter. They fixed them, and they fixed them in a great way. So their silly ability that if you fall back and blah, 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 that's gone. Now, Exalted 8-bound get +1 damage versus monsters and vehicles. So, and that's what they needed. Okay, you don't want them to be able to hit infantry, so they have the 2 damage, fine. But now that +1 damage, giving them 3 damage versus monsters and vehicles, is right where they need to be. And you drop them down to 140 points. I think you'll see 3 in almost every list, deep striking in and just hiding behind a wall to go 10 inches out there and charge into something, cracking many vehicles very, very hard. Their anti-vehicle ability, they'll be very, very strong. Also, another datasheet change was the Slaughterbound went up to strength 10 for his base attack. This means in Berserker Glaive, he'll be going up to, or Berserker Warband, he's going to be going up to strength 12. And I think there is another way in a couple different detachments and stuff that you probably can get another clip of +1 strength somewhere to get him up to 13. If not, okay. But if you get him up to strength 13, now you're hitting 3s onto Land Raiders. Even at the strength 12, you're wounding Land Raiders and such on 4s. So if he's going with regular 8-bound. So Slaughterbound is a beast. So all in all, World Eater's got a big glow up. Really like what we're seeing here, and I'm definitely going to be looking forward to running them soon. And so Necrons, I want to get them back here on the channel here soon. I'm working on the Canoptic Court. I'm waiting for that Geomancer. So it's kind of what I've been holding off for, is to get rules for him to get him into the Necrons, because I feel like he's a crypt tech. He'll probably be good. Canoptic Court is my favorite of the detachments, not just because I love it, just because all the units that are in it are some of my favorite Necron units. But I feel like this could be a good home for him. So I'm started working on a Canoptic Court detachment. I got a really cool one, and I was going to run it up until we saw these data sheets. Tyranids still got some love there. World Eaters especially, now World Eaters and Grey Knights, there's a lot there too, especially with this, a lot to unpack with World Eaters. But then there's the AdMech. And right now, I'm going to be making so many jokes with Belsarius Call because Call is calling the shots. Call is what they've done to Belsarius Call now and what he can do for the AdMech army is I have not fully unpacked this yet. I will be playing AdMech this week. I will be playing the Cybernetic cohort. If you want to check out what I'm doing with that list and why, please check out my army video. There's a couple of very specific reasons to make this working to be a very anti-meta list. And when I mean anti-meta, I mean against the current meta, which is what we're facing. So we'll see if this works out. It'll probably take a lot of tweaking since I haven't played AdMech for a while, but it's definitely going to be interesting. And at the helm is going to be Belsarius Call. Belsarius Call changed a whole bunch. Now, first of all, he's 175 points now. He went up 40 points. And there's a bunch of big reasons why. So first of all, he used to give, his bonus was an aura effect that would give, he again is that Supreme Commander. So he gets to pick one of 3 abilities as an aura at the beginning of the command phase or beginning of the battle round. It might have been, it changed. It just changed. And this is very important for it. But you pick the ability and it's an aura. So Call has to be close to things, which means that your fire support, your guns, everything like that, all has to be surrounding Call to be able to get, +1 to hit. Not that strong. But some people ran it, some people used it. Call was cheap enough that it was like, okay, do this. But it leads to a lot of problems. 1, you have to put everybody around Call. 2, it's not, the buff is mediocre at best. The nice thing about it is because of the wording of Doctrina give you a boost to your ballistic skill by giving you +1 to your ballistic skill stat. So that combined with Call meant you did get 2 ups to hit, which is nice, but no rerolls. So no fancy ways to get into sustain, no fancy ways to hit extra lethal, nothing like that at all. For 40 points more, they changed that. And they changed it in the biggest way they possibly probably could have, aside from just saying you get free roll hits for your entire army, because we basically get Oath of Moment now. So if you pick that, if you pick the reroll shooting ability, you pick a unit in your opponent in your enemy's army. And you're doing this in the command phase. And until the start of your next command phase, your entire army can reroll hits into that unit. That's shooting, that's fighting, that's Overwatch, that's all of it going into it. So this now means that you take Call, you get Oath of Moment. And Marines love Oath of Moment. Why wouldn't you? And this is that. This is very strong for it. On top of it, one of the other ones that he can use gives you +1 leadership. It would give you Battle Shock, which was very interesting. I'm not Battle Shock, Battle Line, which is very interesting because then you switch into that one instead of reroll hits. You go into this and Call can now count as Battle Line, gives +1 leadership when taking Battle Shock tests as an aura, and also now gives +1 OC. So not complete. They have to keep throwing stuff on it to make you even want to switch into it. It's now something you would consider switching into, I guess. The battle line aspect is really nice for some units that trigger off battle line abilities because he can just be that battle line unit. But the +1 OC is going to be where it's really going to be the one that sets it over for some detachments if you decide to switch over into that. Because it's going to be really, really hard for you not to want to just go, oh, I'm just going to reroll hits. And last was Shroud Sloam, which was before it gave you the benefits of cover. Now it gives you stealth, which take it or leave it. Stealth gives you -1 to hit. There's a lot of terrain. You could probably get cover. You're not going to get -1 to hit in the middle of the battlefield just because you're in it, unless you're playing Skitarii, Hunter's Cohort. So I guess that's not too bad. That's pretty decent. But again, Hunter's Cohort kind of makes it you're staying on reroll hits. And I think most of the game you're probably going to stick on that. Now, as far as his guns, because we got 40 points that we got to talk about here. So his gun used to be D3 shots with Melta D3 for flat 3 damage. Flat 3 damage, okay, cool. But those first 2 dice rolls, so swingy. If you're in Melta range and you end up rolling a 1 and to hit 1 shot and 1 on your Melta, you did 4 damage. That's ugly. That's ugly. And again, D3 shots, 1 shot, that's ugly. Now it is flat 3 shots. Cool. With Melta 3, but D6 damage. So if you're within Melta range, you're still looking at the same category before of a minimal of 4 damage as you were looking at before. But now that can go so much higher now. Now each shot can be 9 damage a piece, particularly. I like this. I like the fact that we took some of the randomization off the beginning factor. Sure, the damage roll, that's fine. But when you get down to the damage roll, the CP reroll that you might throw in there and make that decision for your damage will kind of base off on what's going on at that point. And I think it's a little bit easier to manage and it feels better when it's the damage roll you're rerolling instead of rerolling the dice to see how many shots you get on a D3. So Call will be king of the AdMech, and he's making a big stand on that guy. That's really, really big for him. That point drop down is huge. The other one was that the Iron Striders, they went up 5, 10, and 15 points. So 75 for 1, 150 for 2, and 225 for 3. Definitely, they were the other ones that got some work up. And the only reason I don't run these things is because I don't have them. I've never been a fan of that miniature with the guns on it, so I just always kind of stayed away from them. I like the Dragoons so much more. But so the Iron Striders gained twin linked. So originally, I believe they were twin linked, 1 shot. Didn't do anything. They were on the shelf. So then they lost twin linked and gained a second shot and sustained. Okay. Now they have the second shot, they're twin linked, and they still have sustained 1. And this is also for the autocannon. I didn't write down the autocannon stats. The autocannon is a valid gun to run as well too, but the las cannon I feel like is going to be where it's at for right now with the current meta. And those Iron Strider, that's pretty big. Now the point increase, that's a lot. That's a lot for 2 las cannon dudes at 150 points that don't really do much else. But those are some hard hitting las cannons with sustained and the twin link factor, and plus now with our Oath of Moment ability, those are pretty strong. The Infiltrators got a good glow up, I think. So the detachment, again, back to the Doctrina. If you choose the Assault Doctrina, because there's a defensive and an offensive, the offensive one gives you +1 AP if you're within 6 inches of a battle line unit. And I feel like the Infiltrators, they thought that's where you get your AP from. But the Infiltrators infiltrate. So chances are they're not buy anything, so they're not getting that +1 AP. So now they have it on the tasers. The power weapon went up to 4 attacks, but it kept the same stat line. Where the taser goad, which is the sustained 2 weapon, has AP 1 now. That's going to be really, really nice, especially because these guys are more durable than for their points than what you would expect. They can go and pick up an objective and kind of stay to the outside and hit some smaller units that are trying to take that objective, hit them and remove them relatively quickly. They also have some very weird battle shock interactions with how close they are and what they're in engagement range of. So they can shut down some strategies too and take objectives away when battle shocks are failing and score points in silly other ways. At last, for the AdMech is the Rust Stalkers. The Razor and Cord Claw went to 3 attacks at 2 damage. I think the Rust Stalker, that's nice because Rust Stalkers really they didn't really look that good. They used to be kind of the unit that's like, they're not infiltrating like the Infiltrators, they're not quite as quick, but when you go and start breaking down, and then like even you look at their base weapons, and their weapons are like mediocre at best. But then when you start looking at them and realize, hey, there's this ad mech. This means I got robot arms. This means I have more these attacks and these attacks and that stuff. And then it starts to get really interesting with what the Rust Stalkers can do. I think that now we're starting to get to that point that the Rust Stalkers are getting very interesting. But man, the whole selling point is Belzeri's Call. So that's pretty much it for the data slates. The one thing I did notice too is that in this balance update, all of the Grotmist attachments were on this, as saying that they were updated. I scanned through them. I didn't see any changes for a couple, and then I stopped and kind of focused on what actually looked changed. So if there is some change to the Grotmist attachments, let me know in the comment section. I didn't see anything on those, honestly. Anything that we haven't already seen before. But yeah, that's really about it. I mean, I'm definitely think that AdMech has just put themselves right back on the menu here. And I think take a look at what I'm talking about with my list. Take a minute and glide over there and see what's going on. But that's it for this one. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you again soon.